Some people throw thorns, hoping you'll bleed, but fate always teaches them that every thorn flung becomes the crown they're forced to wear. That's cosmic balance. That's how life works. It doesn't ask for permission. It collects debts in silence. You see, the universe isn't watching passively. It moves with precision, correcting, aligning, exposing. Every attempt to block you became a spotlight. Every lie they planted turned into a megaphone for your truth. Because when you are aligned, even sabotage becomes stage lighting. Those who built secret alliances whispered your name like it was poison and gathered like vultures hoping to watch you fall. They didn't realize they were only building your runway. Their hate became architecture for your rise. Irony, number just balance in motion. Critics think they're puppet masters, but their strings always tie around their own necks. The more they plot, the tighter they bind themselves. Because the power of being chosen isn't in loud announcements, it's in quiet, undeniable evolution, the kind that haunts those who once laughed. You walk in silence, but your growth echoes in rooms they can no longer enter. That's what makes them nervous. Your existence exposes their illusion of control. So if you're rising while being targeted, know this: you are not broken, you are the balance, and you're not done. This isn't just survival, it's calibration for something massive. If you feel that truth hit you, hit that like button, subscribe. Because what's coming next is not just content, it's revelation. Let's rise. Before we dive any deeper into this truth, pause for a second. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a message, it's a mirror. If you've ever felt like the entire world turned against you for no reason, if you've watched people you trusted become part of a silent army set on your downfall, then this video isn't content, it's confirmation. So here's what to do. Tap that like button to send a ripple through the algorithm, subscribe to stay locked in with a tribe that sees through the noise, and drop 99 in the comments if you know the betrayal didn't break you, it built you. Every second of this message will hit deeper, harder, and louder because you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to be the reason the whole system cracked. Number 1. Never ignore the crowd that needs a whole army just to shake one soul like you. Let that sink in. These weren't a few petty critics tossing side eyes in silence. This was a full community collaboration. People with unresolved issues and buried insecurities coming together like a dysfunctional task force. Your existence was their common enemy. They built group chats like battle rooms, traded stories like currency, and moved like their reputation depended on your destruction. And it wasn't because you did something. It was because you are something. Something rare, raw, and completely incompatible with their illusion of control. They didn't just gossip. They recruited. They didn't just plot. They pitched in. Like your fall was a group assignment and they all wanted an A. That's how deeply your presence disturbed their carefully built facades. People who hadn't spoken in years suddenly became allies. Why? Because your growth made their stagnancy uncomfortable. Because your focus was louder than their noise. Because you reminded them, without saying a word, of everything they were too afraid to become. It's the kind of fear that doesn't speak directly. It assembles quietly. It doesn't confront. It conspires. They didn't want to challenge you. They wanted to erase you. But here's the twist. Every time they circled around you, they exposed how powerless they really were. Because while they moved as a mob, you never had backup. No army, no alliance, just you, your clarity, and your unshakable momentum. And even with all their hands on deck, they failed, loudly. Let's call it what it was, a spiritual ambush dressed as a social consensus. But what they didn't factor in is this: when you're chosen, pressure doesn't break you, it broadcasts you. Their group effort became your grand reveal. And now, the same people who tried to erase your name can't escape it. You didn't just survive. You became the proof that standing alone in truth holds more weight than a crowd built on fear. They needed numbers. You needed none. And that's exactly why their strategy collapsed. Because what they came for wasn't just a person. They came for a force, and that force is still rising. Number 2. Don't confuse their bonding with truth. It's just insecurity dressed as unity. Let's make one thing clear. They didn't unite against you because you were wrong. They united because your presence was a silent indictment. You didn't say a word, but they felt exposed. And instead of growing, they grouped. Instead of healing, they huddled. That wasn't truth. It was trauma linking arms with insecurity, building a fragile alliance rooted in fear. Look closely, their version of unity wasn't built on facts. It was built on mutual resentment. Their stories never aligned, but their discomfort did. They found each other not through loyalty, but through shared jealousy. You became the excuse they all needed to distract from their own mess. They needed a villain to feel like heroes, and your silence made you the perfect canvas for their projection. What's wild is they wore their hate like armor, disguised as concern, justice, or just being honest. But underneath the performance was nothing but insecurity shaking hands with desperation. That's why they had to repeat the story so often, check in with each other, rehearse their roles. Because fake unity requires maintenance. Real truth doesn't. And here's the part that burns them most. Even with their group effort, it still wasn't enough to stop you. Why? Because energy doesn't lie. And the energy between them reeked of fear, not conviction. So don't be fooled when they stand together. Just because they're loud doesn't mean they're right. And just because they're many doesn't mean they're strong. Their alliance wasn't forged in truth. It was welded in weakness. And now that their target didn't fall, their bond is crumbling faster than the lies they told. Their unity was never about righteousness. It was about survival. And now, without your downfall to fuel them, they're starving. Number 3. Stop chasing validation. Your power isn't built on applause, it's rooted in purpose. They really believed if they stopped clapping, you'd stop rising. That if they removed their approval, you'd lose direction. That's how self-absorbed their thinking was. Imagining they were your fuel, when in reality they were just background noise to a mission that never needed their permission. You see, chosen ones don't rise because of praise. They rise because they're pulled by something deeper. And that's what your enemies never understood. While they built echo chambers to hype each other up, you were in solitude, sharpening your clarity. While they chased applause, you chased alignment. They mistook the stage for power, but you were building in silence. And now your presence commands attention without a performance. The truth is, they were terrified you'd realize you never needed them. That's why they withheld support, withheld acknowledgement, withheld access, thinking your growth would shrink without it. But the exact opposite happened. Every door they slammed made you build your own. Every lie they told made people search for truth and find you standing in it. You didn't crumble when they withdrew. You expanded. And now they're watching in confusion, because in their world, no validation means no value. But in your world, value is defined by how much pressure you can hold and still move with grace. So let them keep their praise circles. You've got something they can't fake: purpose. And purpose doesn't need to be liked. It just needs to be lived. Number 4. Let them mock loudly. Divine justice always hits the hardest when it's public. They laughed with their whole chest, mocked you in rooms they thought you'd never enter, told stories so rehearsed they started believing them. But here's the thing about mockery. It ages fast. And when the truth shows up, it doesn't knock gently. It rips the roof off. They never expected the collapse to be so visible. They thought if they dragged your name loud enough, people would never question the script. But real justice, it doesn't whisper, it performs. And the same voices that tried to bury you are now tight-lipped, avoiding eye contact in the same spaces where they once paraded their lies. You didn't have to fight for revenge, you just had to keep walking. Because when you're truly chosen, the universe handles exposure with precision. One by one, their stories cracked. One person slipped. Another started asking questions. Suddenly, the whole performance started to fall apart. And the audience? They weren't clapping anymore. They were watching, really watching. Now the same mouths that were bold with slander have gone silent. The group chats, ghost towns, the confidence gone. Because karma doesn't just restore balance, it does it with flair. Their defeat had to be public because their attack was. The stage they built to ruin you became the spotlight that revealed them. And here's the real sting. You never even responded. Your silence did what their schemes couldn't, commanded truth. Now, every time they hear your name, it doesn't bring laughter, it brings shame. That's the price of coming for someone who was never meant to break. Let them mock, let them be loud, because the louder they get, the more epic the fall. And this fall, it was front row, full volume, and unforgettable. Number 5. Silence isn't weakness. It's the strategy that exposes what noise could never touch. They thought your silence meant surrender. They assumed you were too weak to respond, too broken to fight back, too unsure to clap back. But silence isn't weakness. It's warfare on a level their minds can't comprehend. While they moved like circus performers, throwing tantrums disguised as truth, you were still, quiet, focused. Not because you had nothing to say, but because you were letting their own noise become the trap. Understand this. Loud people often confuse volume with victory. They believe whoever yells first must be right. That's why they ran their mouths so confidently, thinking if they performed well enough, the world would believe their lies. But real power doesn't beg for attention. It watches, it waits. And when the dust settles, it's still standing. Your silence wasn't passive, it was precision. Every word you didn't say was a weapon they never saw coming. While they were scrambling to keep their stories straight, you were observing the fractures form. You didn't chase clarity, you became it. And now, they look exhausted, exposed, and defensive. Meanwhile, your calm has become the center of gravity. You didn't destroy them, you just let them reveal themselves. That's the part they can't recover from. They expected a war, you gave them a mirror. They expected drama, you gave them distance. They expected to crush you with chaos, and you crushed them with composure. Because when you're chosen, you don't need to scream to shake a room. You just need to exist in truth. And now they're learning the hard way. Real power doesn't perform. It prevails, quietly, consistently, completely. Number 6. Be wary of the familiar. Betrayal hits hardest when it borrows your memories. They didn't come at you like strangers. No masks, no warnings. They came through smiles you trusted, names you defended, voices that once sounded like home. That's what made the ambush cut deeper. It came wearing the face of the familiar. They didn't need to find your weakness. They remembered it. They weaponized what you once shared in vulnerability, twisted your past into ammunition, and stabbed you with details only someone close would know. That's not just betrayal, that's treason disguised as concern. See, the most dangerous enemy is the one who used to laugh with you, because they already know how to blend in while tearing you down from the inside. They didn't attack from the outside looking in. They moved through your history like ghosts, pulling pieces of your story and framing them into a case against you. Not because you were wrong, but because they didn't have the courage to grow like you did. And the worst part, they pretended it was love. They acted like they were worried about you. But real concern doesn't gossip, it doesn't plot, it doesn't rally a crowd to label someone broken. That's not love. That's performance. That's fear trying to wear your skin. But here's where everything flipped. You didn't collapse under the weight of your past. You alchemized it. What they thought would shame you only sharpened you. What they used to define you, you turned into fuel. Now they're stuck with the memory of who you used to be, while you're busy becoming someone they'll never reach again. Because the deeper the betrayal, the higher the rebound, and you've already left their version of you behind. Number 7. Watch how quickly gossip becomes religion when cowards need a common enemy. What started as side eyes and whispers turned into doctrine. Lies repeated with enough confidence became their gospel. You weren't just talked about, you were preached against. And somehow, people who never shared a value, a vision, or even a conversation before suddenly had one thing binding them together: you. The one who moved too boldly, healed too loudly, shined too brightly. You didn't follow their unspoken rules of staying small, so they labeled you the threat. They baptized their bitterness in backroom conversations. They quoted distorted versions of your truth like scripture, passing it from mouth to mouth as if repetition could make it real. And the wildest part, most of them weren't even mad at you. They were mad at what you represented: authenticity, peace, power without permission. You didn't beg to be included, and that unnerved them. You didn't crumble when they withdrew, and that exposed their weakness. They needed to believe you were the villain because it gave them purpose. It gave them a sermon to preach. They were clapping for each other's lies like it was sacred ritual. But here's the truth. Anything built on distortion eventually collapses under its own contradictions. And that's exactly what happened. Their version of the story couldn't hold up. Their alliance was never about justice. It was about insecurity needing company. Now their so-called unity is cracking. Their religion of hate, losing followers, and the enemy they thought they buried, still rising, louder, stronger, and untouched. You. Number 8. They obsess over you because deep down they knew you were the one before you did. They didn't target you by accident. They recognized you before you recognized yourself. That obsession, that constant monitoring, that weird energy where people who barely knew you moved like you were their biggest threat. It wasn't confusion, it was awareness. They saw it first, the potential, the power, the trajectory. And instead of being inspired, they got scared. You walked in, still figuring yourself out, still healing, still second-guessing. Meanwhile, they were already working overtime to stop a version of you that hadn't even fully emerged yet. That's how deep their fear ran. They weren't reacting to your confidence, they were reacting to your calling. And that kind of energy can't be hidden. It leaks into rooms, shifts dynamics, rearranges hierarchies. That's why the smear campaign started early. That's why the whispers came before the winds. They wanted to plant doubt before you could rise. Because they knew if you ever figured it out, if you ever stood fully in what was always meant for you, it was game over. So they tried to trap you in your own self-doubt, micromanaging your downfall like it was their full-time job. But here's the twist they didn't see coming. Everything they tried to prevent, you're becoming anyway. Not through revenge, through alignment. And now they're exhausted, paranoid, still obsessed, still watching. Because the truth eats at them. They saw you were the one long before you did. And they bet everything on stopping you. Too bad they lost. Number 9. Don't panic over the attack. Their failure was already written into your destiny. Don't panic over the attack because the failure was built into their plan the moment they targeted you. What they didn't understand is this: trying to take down someone aligned with purpose is like throwing punches underwater, dramatic, exhausting, and ultimately pointless. They thought they were setting a trap for you. But what they didn't realize was that the blueprint had already been flipped against them. The moment they came together in secret corners, whispering your name like a warning, they unknowingly activated their own collapse. Because the universe doesn't reward manipulation. It doesn't bless betrayal. Every single move they made was just another step toward the ending they were destined to face: public failure. Their mistake wasn't underestimating your strength, it was overestimating their influence. They truly believed numbers could outmatch alignment, that noise could drown out integrity, that a smear campaign could rewrite truth. But the math never worked in their favor. Why? Because they were never fighting just you. They were fighting momentum. And momentum doesn't flinch. It doesn't backtrack. It breaks through. They thought they had you outnumbered, but what they never had was staying power. Their unity was temporary. Yours? Inevitable. So no, don't panic. Don't explain. Don't scramble to fix what was never broken on your end. This collapse wasn't just probable, it was promised. Because anyone who tries to bury a chosen one ends up digging their own credibility's grave. They failed. Loudly. And your existence is still rising, louder. Number 10. You didn't just survive the storm, you outlived what should have ended most people. You didn't just survive the storm, you outlasted what was designed to bury you alive. Let's stop sugarcoating it. What they did to you wasn't petty, it wasn't some high school drama. It was psychological warfare disguised as concern, a slow drip of chaos meant to erode you from the inside out. They didn't just want you gone, they wanted you erased, forgotten, destroyed so thoroughly you'd start questioning your own worth, your own reality. And yet, here you are, not just alive, sharper, louder, clearer, stronger. Most people would have cracked, and not because they're weak, but because no one is built to carry betrayal that deep, from that many directions, for that long. They tried to weaponize your trust, your love, your silence. They turned your soft spots into target zones. They studied you like a map, and still couldn't find the off switch. They were betting on your breakdown, but you gave them a breakthrough instead. Your survival wasn't just luck, it was a demolition of everything they thought they could control. And now, your very existence is a contradiction to every narrative they spun behind your back. You didn't just crawl through fire, you made it witness you. You didn't just walk through the storm, you made the storm retreat. They thought the story would end with your collapse, but the plot twist, it ended with your glow, your peace, your power. Still standing while they fumble to make sense of how their final move backfired publicly. You didn't just survive, you outlived the weapon they swore would finish you, and now every breath you take is a reminder they lost. Number 11. Realize this: you weren't being judged, you were the test they all failed. They thought you were on trial, that your every move, every silence, every decision was being dissected under a microscope, that you were the one being evaluated. But the truth? You were never the subject of judgment. You were the measuring stick. From the moment you entered the room, their masks began to slip. Your presence, calm, focused, unbothered, wasn't just noticed, it was disruptive. Because you didn't carry chaos, you carried clarity. And clarity is dangerous to people built on confusion. You weren't the problem, you were the reveal. Your strength exposed their insecurities. Your patience exposed their impulsiveness. Your silence screamed louder than their loudest lies, and instead of rising to the level of your energy, they scrambled to pull you down into their dysfunction. But what they didn't realize is that your life wasn't asking for their approval. It was revealing their weakness. You didn't have to fight, argue, or clap back. Just by existing, you activated a chain reaction. One by one, their true intentions started leaking out. The loyalty they pretended to have, the fake support, the jealousy they tried to mask, all of it surfaced. And not because you exposed it, because the test was never verbal, it was energetic. They failed because they chose ego over growth, envy over evolution. And while they pointed fingers at you, thinking they were the jury, they didn't realize they were the ones being watched the whole time, by consequence, by the universal laws that always bring balance. So no, you weren't the one being judged. You were the mirror they couldn't look into without flinching, and now they're haunted by what that reflection showed them. Number 12. God let everyone walk, so no one could ever take credit for your rise. Let's be clear, every exit was engineered, every door that slammed, every shoulder that turned cold, every supporter who suddenly went silent, it all served a bigger purpose. They didn't leave because you failed. They left because the blueprint didn't include them. The universe cleared the room so no one could stand in the spotlight and claim they built the light. You were stripped down to the bone, alone. No applause, no audience, no lifeline. And they watched, convinced it was over. But what they didn't know is that silence sharpens focus, isolation ignites evolution, and pressure births precision. While they distanced themselves, you dialed in. While they whispered, you upgraded. Now that your rise is undeniable, they're scrambling, trying to rewrite history, to say they were there from the start, trying to find a back door into your story. But it's too late. There's no space left for opportunists, no empty seats at a table they walked away from. Your growth has no fingerprints but your own. No one can take credit. No one can say they made you. Because when you were on the floor, bleeding from wounds they watched happen, you stood up alone. And that's what eats at them now. Not just that you made it, but that they can't take any of the credit. Not for the healing, not for the comeback, not for the power you now carry. So now you see it clearly. What was meant to break you only exposed who you truly are. Their exit wasn't a loss. It was a filter. And your rise? It's the aftermath of survival. They never thought you'd make it through. Let this be your reminder. Chosen ones don't need crowds, just clarity, and you've got that now. If this message hit where it needed to, hit that like button, subscribe for more power-packed truth, and drop a 100 in the comments to claim your next chapter. The noise failed. Your story, it's just getting started. Keep rising.